Friendship is the most underrated relationship in our lives. It remains the one relation not bound by law, blood, or money, but an unspoken agreement of love. By Hanya Yana Giara. Whew. Whew. Friendship is the most underrated relationship in our lives. It remains the one relation not bound by law, blood, or money, but an unspoken agreement of love. Listen, I had to read that twice because I remember when I first saw it and I screenshot and I was like, yep, that is an episode. That is an episode opener. I want to thank everyone for all their DMs, all the love, all the tweets, all the emails that I received off the back of last week's episode, The First Daughter. I always knew it was an episode I needed to do, but I needed to be in a space where I felt I could do that episode justice and deliver it well. I received a DM and I really want to read it to you because I felt like it, you know, whenever someone sends me a message and identifies with the episode or draws parallels or is able then to open up and feel that like they can, you know, be vulnerable, it always reminds me of my why. And I always say to whoever's emailed or contacted me, this is my why. Because I feel like when you all communicate with me and let me know kind of how the episode resonated with you, what it does is it places me in a situation whereby I'm reminded by the ancestors through you of my why. Because if you think about it, each and every week I come here and I deliver an episode. I just don't wake up in the morning and deliver this episode. Like, I do the treatment for it, I scope it out. You know, if I need to do some research, I do it. And I come here with a skeleton of what I'm going to talk about. And then I just trust the ancestors to guide me to deliver an episode that does the topic justice. So you all know how seriously I take the podcast, but I really do recognise the responsibility. But I just wanted to, before we get into this week's episode, I do want to read a message that I received. Hi Toya, I just want to say that I'm listening to the latest podcast and I totally agree with you in what you're saying about being the first daughter. I'm the first daughter and the eldest child, and it has had a detrimental effect on my well-being and identity. It was a very negative and isolating experience, and I have had to go to therapy to work on this. Also, as an Igbo Nigerian woman, I agree with you when you said what you said about how the culture is toxic. This is something I've had to address in therapy, as well as I know that some people look down on me because I no longer choose to live up to the expectations of others. I dance to the beat of my own drum, and I no longer people please. I always felt dehumanized because culture was weaponized against me and used as a form of control and oppression, which is very sad and problematic. Also, I had to move away from my family to find myself and to get away from the toxicity, chaos and dysfunction. They treated me like trash, demonized me, dehumanized me, and didn't respect my boundaries and well-being. I have no intention of returning because if I go back, I will be broken and traumatized all over again. I don't want to go through that because I've worked very hard to heal, do the work in therapy and rebuild my life. When you said that some people's kids live in different parts of the UK or other countries to be able to exist independently of the toxicity, I felt that because I totally relate. I now live a very peaceful, sane and harmonious life. Also, I just want to say thank you for your podcast. I've learned so much as a Black woman navigating the world of work. Keep on keeping on. You know, I'm so grateful to the ancestors that I was able just to do that episode justice. And I said it before and I'll say it again. You know, I do want to hear from the first daughters, the firstborn daughters, or in my case, I'm the first daughter and the only daughter and the eldest. So, yeah, you know, I get it. And it will remain like one of like the top 5 episodes that I've recorded. For me, it would be, I think. Anyway, You see, this episode, at the point of recording this, I've entitled it HR Ain't Shit. So I'm hoping it stays that way. You know how it goes, isn't it, with me? So I got a dilemma. And the dilemma was very pertinent to this episode. And we're going to go through it. We're going to deep dive, because I feel like I've not worked in any organisation, dealt with any organisation, or had any organisation that's gone through, say, the Toy Talks platform, and ever felt overwhelmed with how good they are. I've never experienced a good HR. I think they're all shit, and that's just my opinion based on my own experiences. Now, that's not to say that you don't have pockets of people who work within HR that are good, but I believe those people are only as good as the HR function in which they're a part of. And we'll get into that in a minute. But I want to share something with you, because, you know, we talk about the Toy Talks podcast platform, I talk about the masterclasses, and ideally, you know, yes, I want it to guide, teach and educate you how to navigate the world of work, but I also want you to be able to use the practical skills that I teach and talk about, and things that I have learned and used in my career. For me, that's so important, because if you give people the blueprint, you equip people with the tools they need, they're able to go into the world of work, and when confronted with an issue, at least have a toolkit of how to deal with certain things. And no matter how senior you are, no matter how much money you earn, I believe that you're always learning at work, about people, about the job, about your environment. You're always learning. I take pride in what I do, and you all know this, but I also take pride in being able to discern. And I've got an episode on discernment, and I'll link it in the show notes. But that discernment doesn't just apply to when I'm actually in work. It applies when I'm going for an interview stage. You have to understand with me, yeah. I know that there's no such thing as a perfect workplace. I've told you guys that. But I do believe in giving myself grace in understanding what I'm able to deal with. And that also means doing the due diligence and sense checking from the gate. And in the world of work, the gate is the interview stage. Now, I've walked away in certain stages of an interview. Like, they'll offer me a second stage and I'll decline. I've got to the final stage and I've got an offer and I'll decline. Because I just feel as though I'm not going to relinquish the bargaining power that sits within me during any type of stage in employment. And the bargaining power that I have is, as I keep telling you, and I will forever say this, being a subject matter expert, having experience, and also knowing what an interview is. Now, in the interview masterclass on the toytalks.com website, I talk about this in depth. You have to open your mind and be ready to receive what I say to you in the masterclasses. If you don't open your mind, if you go with a closed mind, none of these masterclasses you'll be able to use. I always believe that when somebody goes and purchases a masterclass, there's a level of humility you go with. It's number one, recognizing that either a technique or something that you're doing or something that you're using or your style of doing things is not working. It could also be that you want to add to what you already have. You feel like, okay, for example, in terms of interviewing, that you know how to interview really well, but you just want to make sure that you know, maybe a bit rough around the edges. Either way, if you approach anything with a closed mind, you're going to get a closed response. You have to approach it with an open mind. And maybe that's something that I'll put in the summary notes of the masterclasses. If you don't come with your mind open, you can't use any of the masterclasses. And the mind open is the humility to understand that there is about to be some career-changing information you're about to receive that you're able to use and apply. And this is why I've done these masterclasses, so you can go back over and over again and watch them and put them into practice. It'd be really easy for me to do one-to-ones, do mentoring sessions. Okay, cool. But for me, and I think I understand how mentoring works, but I don't believe in the long-term success of mentoring unless you give people the toolkit. Do you understand? And there's different types of mentoring, but the mentoring that I see every day or on the day-to-day is where someone checks in every week and da-da-da. I don't personally think that works. I think that mentoring works if somebody's able to tap in as and when they need you, and that person's able to guide you. But ultimately, you have to be equipped with the tools to be able to apply anything that you learn or pick up or advise during mentoring. And that's why for me, the masterclasses were so important, that you had access to them all the time. I love the fact that there's a dashboard now, so you're not having to like go through emails to find the link. You log in and it's right there for you, and you have that, you know, to watch forever. I haven't limited it. Now, the reason I talk more about the interview side is because I recently had an interview. Now, I've been really honest, open and clear that I would be open to a perm role, but the bar of the perm role is very high. So me going through an interview process doesn't mean anything. It just means that I'm participating in a process to ensure that there is a good fit, to ensure that boxes are ticked. And if I'm going to consider perm roles, I need to be proactively intentional. And that requires me to do something. That's why I'm doing interviews. As far as contracting goes, in my space, in my field, like I've got a good contract. I've already been told I'm going to be extended. You know, I think I've got a good thing going, but again, I don't trust the world of work. My experiences have taught me just lip service is easy, you know. At the end of the day, I'm never going to put my career or my focus or my life in anyone's hand other than myself. So knowing how the commercial space is at the moment, I think it's in my best interest that I open my mind up. And even if it's to additional contracting opportunities, you know, I've done more than one consultancy before. I'm willing to do that for the right role. But for a perm role, that to me is an investment of time. So I applied for a role in a particular sector, and it's quite a very, very niche sector. And I've worked in this niche sector before. In fact, I've worked in this niche sector before with a very well-renowned organisation. And I knew I would get an interview. I just knew it. You know, like when you feel it, because I could definitely see how my experience and, you know, my background clearly aligns. There's synergy between the job description and my experience. So already, when I'm thinking about my due diligence, when I'm thinking about approach, I'm already seeing how it could work. Yeah. And this is the thing. And this is the difference between applying at will, applying within a whim and strategically applying. Like for me, I'd never apply for a role that I couldn't see myself in. Even if the role was director level, I still have to see myself there. And it could be because it aligns with the right age, I can't even get my words out today. It could be that it aligns with the right industry. It could be that this is the next step in terms of my personal career objectives, but there needs to be some alignment. So I got an email requesting interview, and the way it was positioned is, you know, we want to get to know you a little bit more, you know, bring your CV to life, have a conversation, let you know about our organisation as well. So I thought, all right, cool. So I sent her my availability, and it was the head of, was it the head of commercial or it was the head of something, I don't know what it is. So 3 days goes past and I don't hear anything. And I think I suggested like a Thursday or Friday. So I'm thinking I need to know, because I still need to mentally prepare for that. You know, it's still an interview, like it's still a formal process. So I didn't hear anything, and I thought, all right, this is already a red flag. So already I know that organisation isn't this particular person's strong point. And if I'm going to have to be reporting into them, and you can't even book a simple appointment, it makes me think to myself, either you're overloaded with work or you're just lazy, or both. So I sent her an email and I says, and I had my email at the bottom, and I says, I provided you with my availability. I haven't heard anything from you. Could you please let me know so that if this isn't going ahead, I can schedule something else? And she'll come back to me, oh, I'm so sorry. She was telling me about all the strikes, all the tube strikes, all of this, or whatever. Anyway, she gave me a date. So then I get on this call, and she's working from home. I'm working from home. And she's talking now. So in an interview, I prefer the interviewer to do the more talking. I'll only speak if I'm asked a question. I don't interrupt. I'm really patient, and I'm listening to everything that's being said here. As she's talking, I've got my notebook. Again, whether you're in a face-to-face interview or whether you're remote working, you should always have a notepad. And I had my notepad. I had some Post-its as well. And as she's talking, I'm picking things up. Now, I need to just pause there. When I was invited to interview, the first thing I did, and I talk about it on the interview masterclass, I did my research about this organisation. Now, in the masterclass, I go very in depth about research and how to do it, you know. And what I found is 2 months before, they hired the services of a contractor or a consultant, and the rate was really good. So I was able to determine then how much they'd be offering a perm salary, and it worked out to what I would accept. So then I also found that they've got a lot of roles, and they're an international organisation. Now, being international don't faze me, because I've worked in that industry before, and I've worked for a very renowned international organisation. Everyone knows them. So she can't be trying to sell me, you know, Louis Vuitton when I've had Hermes, when I've had Goyard, when I've had Chanel. Yeah, not Chanel, Chanel. You can't sell me that if I've already had it. So I thought, all right, I need to find out what's going on here. So back to the interview. So she's talking. So then she goes, oh, you know, I want you to tell me a little bit about you. Da, da, da. So how I start by telling her about me is I start with the things that for me I'm most proud of. And my education is what I'm really proud of, because you and I know I'm dyslexic. So I beat the odds, and the odds were stacked against me because I didn't get the support I needed, and I wasn't diagnosed with dyslexia until I was well into my university. So that to me will always remain something I'm proud of. And sometimes I have to be honest, when I start with my education to see how they react, because it will let me know if they have an educational background. You see, if I sit there and tell you, I've got my law degree, I've gone to law school, I've got a master's in law, I've done my level 4 SIPs, and when I sit there and tell you I've done certain courses, if you're comfortable within yourself, you should be unfazed. Yeah? Or there should be like an appreciation. Oh yeah, you did this in masters. Oh my God, I did this and this. How did you find it? You know, them type of things. When I told her my educational background, I started with that. I watched her body language. She was very stoic. So that tells me already that either she feels threatened by my educational background, or she doesn't have an educational background herself, and therefore is maybe slightly intimidated, or, you know. Her body language told me a lot, and her positioning of her camera wasn't doing her any favours. She should have done it so I could see from the shoulders up. I saw her whole body, so I was able to see her arms and everything. Whereas for me, from the shoulders up, that's all you'll see on a camera if we're having a remote meeting or a remote interview. So then I started telling her like my highest achievement in a particular organisation, and her eyes got big, because it's not small fry. And when I said it to her, I was like, you know what? Maybe I play it down to myself, but one of my biggest achievements in my career is something that is amazing. You know, it's not something like someone gets to do all the time. and I've been exposed to a lot of things. And I said to her, listen, I'm not wedded to a particular industry. I've got experience in all these industries deliberately because I wanted to open up my mind to the possibility of where I could take my career. And actually, being a commercial contract consultant means that sometimes you're going to have to pivot in different industries being a consultant. So my career has kind of been a follow-on to... My career has kind of laid the foundation for me to follow on as a consultant and work in XYZ. So you could see she was really impressed, and you know. So I said to her, so after I've gone through, introducing her again, if you listen on the masterclass, I talk about how to introduce yourself, this, and the third. So then I said, I do have a few questions. She goes, yeah, of course, I really want your questions. So I said to her, so 2 months ago, you hired a commercial contract consultant, and they were consulting for you for a few months. So this role that's gone perm, has it been offered to them? And if it has, are they going through the same process? If they've rejected it, could you confirm or clarify the reasons why? And she started shuffling in her seat. She said, oh, they just came for a particular project and now the project's done, their contract's over. So I said, even if it's for a particular project, wouldn't you feel more comfortable offering the role to somebody who's already been in your organisation? And she was like, oh no, like I said, it was for a project. So she's lying to me. She's lying. I would have rather her said, well, I offered it to the consultant, but they said they didn't want it because they wanted to remain a contractor. But she willfully lied and said, oh, it was only for a 2-month project, when she's already told me in the interview that a lot of their projects last between 6 to 12 months. So how have you got a 2-month project? If that's what you're telling me, there's a contradiction there, right? Remember how I started this episode? I told you about doing your due diligence. Can you see what I'm doing here? You've got to get to a point of understanding what an interview is. Until you understand what an interview is, you're always going to be at the mercy of an interviewer. I'm not at the mercy of them. We're both in an interview. There's a few things that are happening. People are trying to sell certain things. There's some lies. They are lies, but they don't call them lies. They call them white lies. You see, when you put white in front of it, then it sounds a bit more palatable. Lies are lies at the end of the day. But there is a levels of deception, let's be honest, because you're trying to sell yourself as being the best for that role, knowing that you're not the best, actually. You have your faults, but you're not going to present your faults to an interviewer. What you are is best in class at what you do. You're a subject matter expert. But there are things that you need to work on, but that's not what you're selling in an interview. So there is a level of deception, and I think there is an acceptable level of deception. So insofar as what you're saying is the truth, for example, I'm really not good at the financial aspect of my job. I hate doing projections. I hate all of that. I hate all of that finance stuff. I can't stand it. Now, it doesn't make me any less better at my job. It just means that I find it a challenge. Now, I'm not going to go to an interview and they say, oh, if somebody could, if you could describe certain things you have to work on, what would it be? I'm not going to tell you the financial aspect of it. No, I'll say, I think I'm so passionate about what I do. Sometimes switching off can be a problem. And I think for me, it's working on a work-life balance whereby I have a balance of both. And I'm actively, doing that by employing certain things, X, Y, Z, to ensure that I have a healthy balance between work and my private life. You see what I've done there? Can you see what I've done there? That's how you have an interview. Again, if you want to learn all these things, it's in the interview masterclass on the toytalks.com website. So anyway, so we're in this interview now, and I said to her, you mentioned that you had a director and of commercial, and that person's left now. Would you mind, providing a bit of context as to why did they leave? Was they offered a job? Because you said that they were only there for a few months. So she says, oh, no, he wasn't there for a few months. It was 2 years. No, she's lying, because a few months and 2 years are two different things. So that's the second lie. So then I said, oh, you have a lot of roles in your organisation. So I named them and the regions they are. So New York, I had some in Germany. And I says, is there a reason? Has there been a massive expansion, hence the growth, hence the, recruiting? Where has that come from? And she said, oh no, we're trading as so and so and so. and that's our US entity, and that's our German. We don't have much to do with them. I says, well, you say that, but that's not how it comes across on your it's on your CV. That's not how it comes across on your website. You know, it comes across as a multinational organization, an international organization. So, are you saying it's not that? And she's like, oh, it is that, but you know, it just wasn't making sense. Anyway, so we're having a mutual interview here, and she didn't like it. She didn't like the fact that she couldn't manipulate me to believe in what she was trying to sell. But she knew that I had not only the skill set, the experience to be able to do the job. But she can't hire me. She can't hire me because she needs to protect her job. And I think merely having me will expose a lot in terms of what she does and what she can't do. Because I asked her some really basic commercial questions in relation to the industry they're in, and she couldn't answer them. And it wasn't about whether there was a right or wrong answer. It was about just answering the question. And bearing in mind that I've got a learning disability here, I listen to everything someone says to me, every word that is used. And for me, that's how I learn, because I already know that if I'm not specific about something, the ambiguity throws me off. So I need to be specific, and sometimes you know when someone's not being completely honest, you kind of let go. But if I'm considering a perm role, I don't feel like I have to be gentle in my approach. I just need to be direct in it. And if you're gonna tell me the truth, your answer is gonna be direct. You're gonna have no issue with my approach. But equally, when I asked her how long she's been in the industry and everything, she was very pointed in not discussing her background or her education, and it aligned with what I initially thought when I was explaining mine, that she was uncomfortable. So she said to me, oh, do you consider yourself quite senior? I said, I don't, it's not what I consider myself. It's what is. I am senior. And I said, I'm sure you can see that on my CV. She goes, yeah, I do see it on your CV. But she goes, I always think it's important to ask people how they see themselves. What kind of rubbish is that? That's a stupid question. But again, she has to do that because she feels intimidated. So she needs to, in her mind, she wants to humble me. I'm already humble. I'm humble enough to know that I have flaws within myself as a person, but, I have things I need to work on. I'm very honest in my approach. And I feel like humility doesn't come from feeling like you're not worthy. Humility comes from opening your mind to accept and go through a process. That's humility. And when I'm asking certain things, like she even said it, that my interview manner is very good. I know I've got a good interview manner because I'm not just interviewing, you're not just interviewing me, I'm interviewing you. At the end of it, if your intention is to make me tired, we're going to be both tired at the end, because me too, I'll have my question to ask. And I feel like when you're a subject matter expert, you're not afraid to ask those pointed questions. I went as far as saying to her that, I went on Glassdoor and I saw a few of the criticism. And before I could finish, she goes, oh, and you went on Otter as well. And I was thinking, what is Otter? I've never been on Otter before, but I now know Otter is like Glassdoor as well, so thanks for that. I said, there were common themes within Glassdoor, and I said to her, I caveat that by understanding that people who have left, depending on the circumstances of leaving, are not always balanced in their approach of experience. It's always quite biased. In any case, a common theme is the lack of progression. So my question to you is, as a manager of a department that you're developing, what have you put in place to develop your staff? And she started telling me about a learning development budget and all of this. That's bullshit. What are you doing? You see, if you talk about development, they talk about development as your responsibility, and it is. It's your responsibility of your own development. But as a manager of a department, what I'm looking to hear is support and collaboration. And if you're not saying that to me, you're telling me there's a learning and development budget, what does that mean to me? That learning and development budget, divide it by how many people you have in the team. That's not much per head. And this is the bit that I'm trying to get you guys to understand. When it comes to learning and development, and they're trying to sell it as a benefit of a job, that's bullshit. Because number one, they find it difficult to put in an email. Then put it in a contract is often difficult. And the wording in which you have to use to put it in a contract to make them obligated to fulfill your learning and development, it takes a bit of back and forth to even get them to agree to do that. That tells you how far removed a lot of these organisations wants to be in terms of your development. Now, there's some organisations and they'll tell you they're about development and this, and the third. And if that's the case, then put it in a contract. Put your words in a binding contract and let's take it from there. Anyway, I say all this to say, at the end of the interview, she said to me, you know, Toya, you've got a really, really nice interview, man. I really enjoyed that interview. I said, yeah, I really enjoyed it too. She said, the next stage is I'm the hiring manager, you've met with me. There's going to be a behavioural interview, a compatibility interview, and a technical interview. I said, oh, okay. I said, so who's the behavioural interview with? She said, HR. I said, so you use some type of metrics? She said, yes. I said, and a compatibility interview, who's that with? She said, HR. I said, oh. I said, who's the technical interview with? And she said that will be confirmed. The red flags were going off from a long time with the lies. But my question to you all is, she's the hiring manager. She's the person that manages the team. Well, there's no team. It would have been me and her. Already that's a problem, because I don't like that too much proximity anyhow. But a behavioural interview with HR, I don't believe in all of that shit. You know, all that psychometric testing. As soon as I know you're doing that, I've already lost it. I've told you I'm not coming to your interview because it's bullshit. Compatibility. That's why you have to have a developed interview technique as a manager, as an interviewee. Because the compatibility comes from that. And what people are not understanding is compatibility also comes through on a probation. When you're going through a probation, it's mutual compatibility. But they don't see it that way. Okay, cool. Technical interview, she's not too sure who would do that. But my question is, if you are the head of that department, you're the hiring manager, you should be doing the technical interview. Do you know what they would have done for the technical interview? Maybe they've got a contract that needs negotiating, or maybe there's a contract that has problematic clauses from the other side. Then they'll make you do it as part of the interview process and pass it off as their own work and give it to the other side to respond. That's how they do. I've been in those situations before where they get you to do free work by doing technical interviews. I still don't understand why people have 7-stage interviews. Listen, 2 stages is what I'm doing. If I'm doing a 3rd stage, it's because I know within myself that I still haven't determined whether this organisation is ticking boxes. I'll go for a 3rd stage, but you better believe that every step of the way, every stage, that organisation is going to also feel like they're being interviewed. This woman, as I'm talking to you, she can't reach out to me. She can't. It's impossible. Because she's also trying to protect her job. Even if she reached out to me, she and I know that I ain't going through these stages. This morning, I get an email from her. And she says, Toya, it's been a week since my interview with you. She goes, I thought I would hear from you. So I'm thinking, is she all right? So I emailed her back and I said, it was you invited me for an interview and you told me what your stages are. So it would be, the onus is on you to reach out to me. And she says, and she come back to me, she says, I'm reaching out now. And she goes, I would love to have a 2nd stage interview with you. And I just went back to her and I said, thank you so much for the invite for a 2nd stage interview. However, I don't feel that this would be compatible or a compatible match. I said, I've worked several years within my industry and I've worked 7 years in the industry in which this organisation belongs to. And more than anything, more than money and everything else, compatibility is massive to me. I said, I consider myself quite senior anyway, but because of that seniority, I have to make sure that if I'm going to invest in an organisation by going perm, certain things at interview need to come out. And what came out in interview is that the organisation is very unstable. The recruitment is like a revolving door because people are unhappy. I am concerned about senior members of staff within this division leaving, and the reasons have not been clarified in a way that would make me feel comfortable. And I don't want to waste your time, and I definitely don't want to waste my time by going through a process when I already feel as though there's not a match. And she didn't respond. Now, the reason I tell you this is because of this. Most organisations are mad, yeah? But you don't have to enter the fire to know it's hot. And I feel like definitely as black women, some of us are so traumatised and we have such PTSD that we almost accept difficulty as part and parcel of our job. So for example, if you have a very difficult interview and all the red flags are flashing, a lot of us still feel as though it won't be as bad, or in comparison to. That's a form of PTSD. Now, I'm not sitting here saying to you that you'll have a lovely interview, go into a job and they're not mad. But I pride myself in knowing what I can manage and what I can handle. And if I'm going through an interview process and there's certain red flags that are really flagging, I have to pay attention. You see, when you are in a position to create options for yourself, you're able to pivot. I'm not having one interview at a time, I'm having several interviews. And I'm not sitting here saying, oh, you know, if a role didn't come up that wasn't suitable and there were certain things that were concerning, that I would turn my eye away. But it's about the measure of what I can tolerate. I'm really sorry, but I know how stress emanates on my body. My hair starts falling out, I start getting patches. If your interview process is causing my hair follicles to reconsider growing, I can't come there to go through your interview process to then be offered a job. You see, what these organisations don't realise is an introduction into their organisation starts at interview stage. And it's not in the interview itself, it's even how they reach out to you in an email. It's the communication, it's the how they set up the interview. Are they long? If I'm chasing you, that is one red flag. I don't chase nobody. But if I'm chasing you, and I think with this organisation, I was really curious about them because they are in the industry that I'm interested in. And there were certain things that would have been a benefit to me. So for me, I was like, all right, I'm not going to chase you. But what I am going to do is let you know that you're wasting my time. And if I had done that to her, she wouldn't have reached out to me again. But my thing is always, this is part of the due diligence process. Now, if I had sent her the email and she didn't respond back to me, I wouldn't have chased her again. That time I suggested would have come and passed. Sometimes I feel like, can you give organisations a bly? And I think that was the bly, like me sending an email. But I'm not going to chase you periodically for things. So if I don't get the calendar invite after I've sent you an email, I'm not chasing you. If you send me the invite on the day, I'm not going to your interview. Because in my head, I've already told myself that this interview is not happening. Can you see how I've just broken down how to do initial due diligence through an interview process? This is even before you've been offered the role. Now, for some people who maybe haven't been in a job for a long time and you maybe don't feel like you have the choices, I get that. But it's worse to start a job and leave after a week than to walk away from a role that you know that if you were to take, it would take something away from you. And this is the point, isn't it? When you ignore the red flags and you just go into a role, knowing that there's these red flags, it takes something away from you. It does, because you know within yourself that this isn't the right decision. Then everything that happens that reconfirms the red flag, it chips away at you. It chips away at your confidence. It chips away at your self-esteem. It chips away at your ability. It chips away at how you question your ability to make good decisions. Now, when we spoke in the last episode, I spoke to you all about being the first daughter and how, you know, a lot of my personal experiences has meant that I don't always trust my decisions. Now, if I've gone to therapy to work on that, and now I have a better relationship with myself to make informed decisions, if I'm going through life and making life decisions, however minor, so like, you know, interviews and roles and stuff, you have to be able to trust your decisions even on a micro level, because trusting your decisions transcends everything all over your life. You know, you make decisions every day. You make a decision to eat, go downstairs, go upstairs, go to the toilet. You've got to trust your decisions on a micro and a macro level. And I looked back at that interview and I laughed. And I laughed because the 20-something-year-old Toya is screaming of just pure excitement. Because when I was in my 20s, I didn't know who I was. I wasn't confident in who I was as a person. I think when you get to the point of feeling comfortable with yourself and knowing who you are and knowing what boundaries you set for yourself, you'll go through an interview process and you will be humble enough to understand that, yes, this is a great opportunity. But if those flags are flagging, I love myself enough, I trust my decisions enough, I trust my techniques enough to know actually walking away is probably the best thing for me. When I said to Kay, even if this woman offers me this role or offers me the next stage, I'm not taking it. There was a confidence I felt, and I've never thought, oh, I made the wrong decision, or maybe, no, I haven't really felt that way. I think when you've gone through so much work trauma, you always have a measure of what you don't want to happen again. And this is what I'm saying, like, trauma doesn't need to be an intrinsic part of our existence, but our traumas should be an example of the things that we don't want to go back into. Now, you know, we often talk about going through therapy to deal with work. And I mean, I always think, like, for me, my discipline is after each contract or after each role, I have to go to therapy to talk through whatever it is I experience on a micro or macro level. I have to talk about even the reasons why I left. And my therapist is amazing anyway, because, you know, she's my therapist in just dealing with life. But I think work-related stuff is really important as well, because it's a part of my life. I'm really passionate about my career. I'm really passionate about what I do. I love what I do. Also as well, I have carried a lot. You know, yes, the podcast is an outlet, but I've carried a lot. And there's still so much that I've experienced at work that you know, maybe one day I will talk about other stuff, especially in my 20s. I've avoided talking about certain major things that happened in my 20s. But that is more because I feel like when the time is right, I'll talk about those things. You know, it's a lot to go through. And I think as women, as black women, our experiences are very unique. And it's only when you speak to other black women, we understand that, number one, in order to be in these organisations, you have to be best in class at what you do, because they want the best, so they know to come to us. But then you have to deal with possibly being the minority, not just as a woman, but as a black woman. And then you have to prepare yourself for the possible traumas that you may go through as part of this role. And the micro traumas, to me, are worse than the macro ones. The micro ones are worse because they almost seem quite singular. You often feel singled out. But then I think about all the times in my 20s where the red flags were at interview stage, but I still took the job anyway. Now, question, could I have saved myself a lot of trauma if I had just had the confidence to walk away and go and apply for other roles? And the answer is yes. I feel very empowered by my experiences to be able to walk away from roles that pose as red flags. And I feel like some people's desperation to get into certain organisations causes them to ignore red flags. So, for example, when I was working at Goldman Sachs, one of my friends was working at also a very well-renowned organisation, and she was so desperate to work for this organisation, and for her, Goldman Sachs was second on her list. So she asked me one day, and she's like, why did you apply for Goldman and not this other organisation that she wanted to get in? And I said, well, I just didn't think it fitted me. And at that time, you know, when I was at Goldman, it was like, oh my God, you know, it's so, for me, I knew that they were a big deal, but I don't think I fully understood the impact it would have on my CV. And it's made a massive impact on my CV. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. And she said to me, she would do anything to get into so-and-so organisation. She ignored all the red flags. She went to work for this particular organisation. And after she left there, she never went back into that industry again. She's in a completely different industry. And now in our 30s, when we talk, she says it to me. There were so many red flags at interview stage. There were so many things and so many hoops I had to jump through that I was so blinded by every stage, and I was so competitive about getting through. I never thought about it being like the precursor to what I would encounter when I got there. And when I got there, it was like the interview stage all over again, 2.0. And I realised that I never took the time to appreciate who I was. I didn't know who I was. I didn't have an identity. And my identity came from getting into this role in this organisation because of the reputation. And I didn't think about how it would affect me. And when my friend said that to me, I was like, you know, hindsight is an amazing thing. But you're able now to teach that to your kids. You know, I never want my child to be so fixated on an organisation that they ignore the red flags, or they forget to do their due diligence because they're so focused with getting in the organisation. And I'm going to sit here and say to you, you spend a lot of time at work. Whether you're hybrid, remote, or in-person worker, you spend a lot of time. You have to know or be intentional with where you spend your time. Whilst no organisation is perfect, there's some prolific offenders when it comes to organisation. So I'll give you an example. Anyone I know that has ever worked for Amazon on a corporate level has been traumatised by their experiences. I don't need to get a job in Amazon in their corporate or commercial space to know that people's experiences when they're coming in droves like that is a red flag. The mere fact that they're advertising the same job more than 10 times in a year is a problem for me. Like, that's the type of red flag where I don't need to go and get more red flags to know that I shouldn't. Do you understand? Now, there has to be balance, isn't there? And I will always encourage you all to seek balance in everything that you do in life. Life should be, and maybe I'm a Libra, and it's probably why I speak about balance a lot. But there needs to be balance. You know, no workplace is going to be perfect, but what can you reasonably manage? And part of that comes from knowing yourself and not having this toxic relationship with stress and trauma and anguish as a precursor to a role. There was an organisation in the summer that offered... So in the summer, when I left that mad place I was working at, I was offered a few roles around the same time. At one stage, I had 3 offers. I don't know if I told you guys this. So I started all 3 jobs. Yeah, I did. Because interviews were okay. There was no issue. One of the jobs, I'd heard a couple of rumours. And then my best friend rang me and she was like, I really don't want you to work at so-and-so place because I've got XYZ that work here and da-da-da. Now, I said to her, all right, cool. I'm not going to work here, but I'm going to start there. And I'm going to start there because I've got 2 other roles that have offered me a job. But there's no red flags that I've seen. But knowing that you've had that experience, I know already that I won't kind of commit myself to this role. And I kid you not, after day 2, I knew. I was like, this place is mad, you know. I called up the manager. He was so lovely. He said, Toya, you know, we fought tooth and nail to have you here. You negotiated your day rate and the contract. We've never really done these things. So I'm going to try to fight to keep you. I thought, oh, that's cute. Imagine I'm going to fight to keep you so you can go through this madness and have another chapter of trauma. No thanks. But this is what I'm trying to say. Like, you need options. Some of you apply for one job at a time, like you're dating. I dated multiple people at the same time. I really enjoyed doing that. Non-sexual dating, I dated a lot of people at the same time. Because you need option. You need to be able to pivot. When I interview, I do the same thing. I cast the net far and wide. And then the recruiter will now be saying to me, oh, are you interviewing for anywhere else? Oh, you know, I'm very picky about, you know, interviewing anywhere else. And for me, I feel like we've built up a rapport, so I kind of want to just focus on this role that you've put me forward for. That's bullshit. These times I've got like another 4 interviews. I don't need to tell you what I'm doing because my due diligence helps to protect me. Yeah. The other 2 roles, one of them, I think I told you, that's where he was trying to tell me how to use the intranet. I was thinking, what in the bullshit is this? This one that was telling me that they can't send me IT kit. I have to use my own kit and all of this. And then he starts moving crazy when the internet's not working properly or the computer. And I was like, but you didn't want to bring kit. And then when I made the decision, like, I don't want to continue past day 1. He's now telling me, oh, he can send me kit. No, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. The 3rd role, yeah, that's where I am now, isn't it? And I knew it was the right decision. I knew it was. I felt it. The interview was very good. There's a few notable interviews that I've had in my career. This one, it happened to be one of them, where I'm consulting at the moment. The reason I give these examples to you is when you give yourself options, it allows you to go through an interview process with a level of relief. You know, when you only have one option, you act pressed. You know, like you act constipated. Because for you, you're just focused on this one thing. And then that causes you to miss out on very significant red flag signs. When you go into an interview, I'm going to do a challenge. When you go into an interview and you've taken the techniques from the Toy Talks interview masterclass, you've taken these techniques, I want you to identify at least 2 red flags in an interview. Once you have identified the 2 red flags in an interview, ask yourself a question. Are these red flags significant enough for me to withdraw from the interview process? Or are these flags not too serious, but enough for me to explore them further as I go through the interview process? Because what that's going to do is going to cause you to start questioning some of the red flags you're seeing. Then by the time you get an offer, then you have a very holistic view about a decision you're going to make. So you'll know what the red flags are. You'll go through the interview process. You should have an understanding about whether you can see yourself there. Actually, am I going to accept that role? There's no obligation to accept a role. Now, I understand, again, the cost of living crisis. I understand, how interviews work. But you need to have more than one interview at a go. You have to. Because how you perform in the interviews is knowing that you've got other roles that you're interviewing for is very different to interviewing in one role where you have no other options. You interview very differently. It's true. Whereas if you know you have things in the pipeline, you're more likely to be relaxed enough to be able to observe the non-verbal communication that happens in the interview, but also you're able to identify the red flags. Anyone that goes for an interview and says there was no red flags, you probably are the red flag. The other day, I woke up really, really early, and I'm talking like 6 in the morning. And ordinarily, I don't look through the Toy Talks mailbox that early. And if I do, it's because Jennifer's messaged me and she's like, listen, there's something you need to see in the mailbox, or we've got a new assistant now, she might want to draw my attention to certain things, or if I want to kind of see what's happening in their day, I might go through the mailbox. But I don't just wake up and go through there. There's always like a reason. Something inside my spirit said to me, Toya, look in this mailbox. I really can't explain it. As I looked in the mailbox, there was an email there. It was a dilemma. It was sent at just gone 5 in the morning. And something just said to me, you know what, Toya, open this email. And I'm really, 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 really glad that I'm obedient to my ancestors, because I know for a fact that I don't wake up at that time. Like, TMI, if I'm going to use a bathroom, it's usually like 4 in the morning, and we've got an ensuite, so I'm not going far and go straight to the bathroom, back to bed. But this was different. Like, I couldn't get back to sleep. I was compelled to look at the mailbox. So let me just read the dilemma that I received, and it was entitled Urgent Dilemma. I found myself running out of my office building on a random Wednesday afternoon. Dear Toya, I would like to begin to thank you for creating one of the most educational and entertaining podcasts. You are truly such an amazing person and deserve so much for all the lessons you have taught us. Yesterday, I found myself briskly walking, nearly running out of my office building after receiving an email from Human Resources threatening me to attend a meeting after I declined the invite. This was all induced by an email I sent to my manager asking her to pronounce my name correctly. This has been an ongoing issue with her, as I've asked her many times to pronounce my name correctly. After sending an initial email, I went about my day, business as usual, having regular wider team meetings with my manager, and she didn't bring up my note at all. Frustrated after nearly a week of not receiving any response, I replied to the initial email asking if she can please respond. After a few hours, I got a meeting invite from Human Resources. For context, I work in an organisation that only has a director of HR, as the entire HR is a one-woman show. The invite was titled Meeting, with no context, and the invitees were the one-woman show and my manager. When I received this note, I was confused that it was escalated to HR, given that I did not even have a chance to have it addressed with my line manager. My organisation has an open door policy per the employee handbook where it is encouraged to speak to your manager about your concerns. The next day, I responded that I do not feel comfortable attending this meeting and declined the invite hours before it was scheduled. 2 hours later, when the meeting was set to start, I was met with an email from the One Woman Show demanding I attend the meeting and that they are waiting on me. I sent an email again reiterating that I will not be attending, and she then responded, please provide me the reasons why. When reading this, I felt like I was going to be ambushed. This is when I decided to leave the office, as it was 1 hour before the workday was set to end. I feel unsafe, and until now do not know how to approach the situation. My initial email was only asking to say my name correctly, and I'm being treated as though I breached company policy. The entire situation has become hostile so rapidly. I have attached the email thread to provide more context if needed. Thank you for taking the time to read this dilemma. I am truly lost. So you can imagine when I read that, I was just like, I just kind of like jumped out my bed, because I looked at the time she sent this, and I knew there was just no way that this young lady has slept. I felt her energy. I felt the anxiety. I really felt how she was feeling. And I know all too well how HR abuses their position. Now, I have friends that work in HR. I have a friend who's very senior in a particular organization. She's a director of HR. And I say to her all the time, I say, listen, like, I'm not sitting here telling you that you need to be the benchmark of how to, create a great HR function. But just remember that all the things that you do bad, all the holes, all the pitfalls, it only takes one employee to teach you a lesson that costs your organization money for them to think, actually, are HR doing their job? So I want to read the email that she initially sent to her line manager that gave rise to the subsequent meeting that they put into her diary. Hi, Yasmin. Imagine her line manager called Yasmin. Hi, Yasmin. A friendly reminder for the pronunciation of my name. It is Sina, not Zena. There is no Z in my name. I know I have mentioned this a few times to you. However, it is important that my name is pronounced correctly, especially since we have been working closely together nearing a year. It would be great if you prioritize this and are intentional in my name pronunciation. I've had a few newer individuals on the team ask if my name starts with a Z because of your pronunciation. This leads to confusion and can add to the erasure of my identity as a person. This will be greatly appreciated. Thanks, Sina. You see the email she sent? And I said it to her in my reply, and I'll read you my reply to her. It was very well constructed. It was very pointed. It was very respectful. And more than anything else, I love the way this queen advocated for herself. What she is actually saying is, please pronounce my name well. You've been working with me for long enough to know how to say my name. Be conscious and cognizant of the fact that this is my name. This is my identity. And every time you pronounce my name wrong, you're erasing who I am. I loved that email. It was very well constructed, straight to the point. A couple of lines. So for her boss initially to ignore the email, there's a couple of things. She ignored the email because either one, she didn't know how to deal with it. Because a lot of these managers, they're just inexperienced buffoons masquerading as managers. Let's be honest. So she either didn't know how to deal with it because she lacks the managerial toolkit to know how to deal with that. As simple, I am so sorry, Sina. Sina, by the way. That's not her real name. I've had to change the name. I'm so sorry, Sina, for the mispronunciation of your name. I apologize for ever making you feel as though this is not important. And I will, of course, be cognizant and conscious to pronounce your name correctly. As you have said, your name is your identity, is who you are. Please accept my apologies. That would have been the end of it. Now, as I started, she ignored this queen's email, either because she didn't have the managerial toolkit to know how to deal with it. Number two, she didn't think it was important enough to reply. Number three, this is just stupid. Now when people are just stupid and they just don't know. She's just stupid. So maybe she was just wishing it would go away. Now when Sina then responded to her, to ask her to acknowledge me, what she's saying is, you already mispronounced my name. And in an attempt to erase my identity, ignoring it is effectively doing the same thing. So I think it was great that she followed the queen, fellow black queen, followed up with an email. I do. Because what you're not going to do is mispronounce my name, attempt to erase my identity. And when I send you an email, you erase me and forget that I've said, no, girl. So this is my response to this queen. Hi, Sina. I hope you're well. Firstly, the email you sent to your boss was both professional and clear, and there is nothing within it that is anything but you making clear the pronunciation of your name. However, I do understand your reluctance to attend a HR meeting, and why it was sent to HR is a question for you to ask at the meeting. If you listen to the podcast and all I teach, know that you will be fine. I suggest if the meeting is rescheduled, that you attend. In fact, you should reschedule it, and in the email make clear that an issue you addressed with your manager in an email, you did not expect them to ambush you with a request for a formal meeting with HR. That you felt intimidated and ambushed, and you believe that this was the desired effect as a direct result of you addressing professionally the pronunciation of your name. Say in the email to them, because I'm asking her to basically email them, you have taken external advice on this matter and are willing to attend a meeting and would like to be accompanied with a request for a note taker. Sina, since they have set the tone, you must also. You must draw on everything I teach in the podcast and find the courage to advocate for yourself. After the meeting, send a short summary of the meeting in a few bullet points, then come back to me. Listen to the following podcast episodes. Email, quick chat, and also workplace shakedown. You are your own advocate. Good luck. You've got this. Kind regards, Toya. So then she responded to me, and I'm going to read her response. Sorry, there's been a lot of back and forth, so I just want to make sure. Okay. Dear Toya, I want to first start with saying after reading your advice and words of encouragement, I felt a renewed sense of confidence. Prior, I was extremely anxious and feeling a high sense of helplessness. I sent those emails confidently because of your reassurance. I also listened to your recommended podcast, which gave me another boost in confidence. They have kept trying to put the only black Muslim woman who wears hijab in the corner, someone who they continuously degraded. I sent the email and ... I have a follow-up! ! I have sent the email thread of all the responses attached, including the note outlining that I felt ambushed. She wants to know why I need a third party present. I also noticed she changed the subject heading, which was initially entitled Private and Confidential. Thank you so much. So before I give my opinion, everything, I want to read now HR's response to her email. So the email that I advised her to write, she wrote and sent it to HR. Now they've come back to her. They've changed the title of the meeting from Private and Confidential, and they've actually given her a response. I'm going to read this and then I'm going to contextualize everything and give you my opinion. To reiterate, the purpose of yesterday's meeting was to have all of us in a room to address your email. This meeting was not in any way to make you feel confused, uneasy, or anxious. Rather, it was an opportunity to have an open discussion to ensure that your concerns were adequately addressed. We do not feel it necessary to have a third party attend our internal discussion. However, if you feel the necessity to have a third party present, can you please identify the reasons for them to attend? Our intentions were to address it in an amicable and professional manner and to ensure that you were satisfied with the outcome. Kind regards. So I've gone back to Sina and I've asked her if she wants to be accompanied by a third party. She said to me yes. So I need to draft something to her to send to HR, because HR are now questioning why she wants a third party present. But let me just explain something to you. When HR send them ambiguous emails, it is in every situation to antagonize, to make you anxious, to make you worried and uneasy. That's the reason. Because if that's not the intention, then why wouldn't you put the reason in the body of the meeting request or even an agenda? When you send somebody an email, quick chat, and we've got that podcast episode, well, about what? Now, when an email comes from HR, you know there's some seriousness to it. Given that this young lady follows company policy, but even if it wasn't company policy, I don't see a reason why this young lady can't just email her boss. Her boss saw it fit to draw HR into it. But what her boss doesn't realise is she set the tone of this meeting. She set the tone. She set the serious... Now, the topic at hand is serious. But what we're saying is, it's serious enough for Sina to draw it to her boss's attention. And she wanted to keep it on that level. When you start involving HR, now what you've done is you're now triggering a formal approach. It's formal. And you're entitling the meeting private and confidential. It can only be taken in the way in which you've presented it. Now, when Sina left work early and I think that further iterates the anxiousness she was feeling. She can't be penalised for it. They dare not penalise her for it. Can you see now how the roles have shifted? Some of your bosses are using HR as bullies, and some of you who work in HR are allowing these low-level managers with lack of experience and stupidity, and I don't know whether they're on cheap crack. They use you in HR to bully junior members of staff, and you guys jejely go there, beating the drum of employment law. Some of you don't even know nothing. Because if somebody has come to me with this and I work in HR, I would encourage the line manager to deal with it. If she feels that she's not equipped, I give her HR advice. I can even draft the email that she will then send on to the employee. But it should be kept at the level in which the conversation has been set. If Sina wanted it to go for a formal route, she would have gone to HR. She didn't do that. Now, you have to look at it. Look at it carefully. Somebody has come to you and asked you to pronounce their name properly, and your response is to go to HR. Is it any wonder that Sina's going to feel anxious? Because in her head, I'm telling you this informally. Why are you shouldn't it be Sina taking it to a formal approach? But HR, this one-man band HR, I've always got a problem with it. That's why you can't find me in a tech startup. Sorry. No, I'm not starting up with them. I cannot do it. Because see this one-man band, they don't know what the hell they're doing. They haven't got it, not the foggiest. Then when you come with the energy of knowledge, they start to shake. Shake like a leaf on an autumn night. They start to shake. What you are never, ever, 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 ever gonna do is think, because you're in HR, that you're formidable. I will penetrate that your formidability. That's some bullshit. See how they've all messed up now. And who has the bargaining power? Is it not Sina? There's nothing wrong with Sina's email. Absolutely nothing. In fact, when I read it, I said, this is a simple something. It's simple correction. So what this line manager is saying is she's above correction. Now, HR said, we just wanted to make sure we reach a suitable conclusion. Well, if you want us to reach a suitable conclusion, you can start by talking to the line manager and ask her to acknowledge emails when they're sent to her, especially when somebody is basically talking about you erasing their identity. Come on. Now, having a witness there is this. I don't like the disproportionate response to her email. I don't like it. It's making me uneasy. And whilst I believe this queen can handle this one-to-one, the reality is this. The line manager is incompetent. The HR manager is incompetent. So I don't trust neither of them. So I feel like if you have a third party present, at least that person can play witness. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draft a very short, sharp email for this young black queen to send to the HR. Because the HR is stupid. You took it out of here. This was disproportionately dealt with. You took it there. Then she's responding. You're now asking her why she was a third person and a note taker. Now, I can forego the note taker. That will mean that Sina has to take notes. Because at the end of this meeting, Sina has to give summary. It's imperative. I also want to draw everybody's attention to this. This is not here in the UK. This is in a different country that this is happening. Yeah. This queen is in a different country. I think I can tell you, she's in Canada. So I want you to know The incompetent HR is international. Their incompetence is international. Okay? HR are internationally incompetent. But yeah, how to deal with them is universal. I don't play games with these HR business partners. All I want you to do is make sure you process my pay and make sure that my pay slip is attached to my profile. Yeah, that used to be my attitude. And this is why, you know, when I hear things like this, it does reinforce the reason why I'm a consultant, because me and Perm, I'll be flogging them every day, you know, and I don't have the energy. So this queen that shared this dilemma, I'm really happy that you were comfortable and felt safe enough to share it with me. And I'm so happy that the ancestors woke me up and immediately I was able to send you an email, because typically, number one, I won't wake up that early, but number two, I'd be too tired to send an email. But by His grace, I was able to do it. Now, what I will say is, I'm going to obviously respond to her, you know, with what I believe should be, you know, communicated to HR. I think the meeting's meant to be on Wednesday, so I will do it tonight so that at least she'll get it on time. And the person that it should be the witness should be somebody who I believe works already in the organisation, if possible. If she can find maybe there's somebody that she gets on really well with. And all their role is to do is just to sit and listen. They're not supposed to say anything. Sina will be taking the notes. And what should happen is, it should be an open and shut. I don't want this protracting. In fact, I want HR to respond to the summary email at the end of this meeting that Sina will send. I want them to respond, because Sina, I want you to have this on file. I want you to have this on file. And it needs to go to which file? The burn folder. That's where it needs to go. Because HR are mad, and your line manager is even worse, because she's actually stupid. She's stupid. Because surely she must see going to HR was not the right move. She could have just, even if she didn't want to respond to that email, she could have put a meeting, you and her in a room, have a conversation. I apologise. You know, I'll do better next time. Ends of story. And I'm so proud of you, Sina, for having the conversation. Because, Sina, let me tell you something. If this had just been a verbal conversation, this incompetent, stupider person, I don't even know, that's not a word, but she would have denied that conversation even took place. And this is what I say about creating an audit trail. Your email has started the ball rolling of an audit trail. It can't be denied and it can't be disputed. How is your manager going to justify ignoring your email? I didn't see it. Oh, you didn't see it. And then when you did see it, you went straight to HR. So yes, I wanted to share that dilemma with you. Hopefully this queen keeps us abreast of what happens, and then I'll be able to share the conclusion of this, because this will conclude if it's managed carefully. I think all she wants is an acknowledgement that her name will be pronounced correctly. Can you imagine, on its most basic level, as a black queen, the minimum we expect is them to pronounce our names properly, and even that they can't afford us that. It's just disgusting. And this is why I say it's important to advocate for yourself, because if you don't advocate for yourself, these people will erase you, change your name, and call you what they feel comfortable with. It's akin to branding. We're no longer in the slave trade. Our ancestors were slaves. They were branded. We are free indeed. So you then cannot be using these macroaggressions to further erase our character, our identity. It's impossible. If somebody mispronounces your name, you have to correct them, because it's like accepting a branding. It's very triggering. And me, I'll write it there. You continuously mispronouncing my name, and on various occasions I have corrected you. The fact that this has continued, it's like a branding, and it's very historically triggering. I'll write it down and send it. Nobody will remind them to pronounce your name correctly. It's laziness, because they can't be bothered. They themselves, they say, oh, it's no big deal. Yeah, it's no big deal to you, because you don't have a history. You don't have a history of what it is to be a black person. You don't have that history. You don't have the history of colonization, racism, lynching, slavery, the slave trade. You don't have that history. So when you see a black person and they take pride in their name, because their name is the crown of who they are, when you see that person take pride, rather than you to call the name that has been ordained for them, you want to brand them. You want to take us psychologically back there. God forbid. When you allow these people to mispronounce your name, it's like accepting branding. They're branding you. Boom, like, you know how they branded the slaves? It's like that. You can't brand me. That's why, you know, in past employments, people call me Latoya. My name is not Latoya. My name is Toya. There's no L in Toya. And I'm really firm about it. And if it continues twice, that's the email that we'll be receiving. This feels like a branding. It's almost like you're trying to tell me that my name is spelt or pronounced or is incorrect, that you want to give me a name. And historically, it's triggering something. I don't have to say what history is triggering. They know. They know. Oh, I'm not a racist. Did I tell you it was racist? I just said it's historically very triggering. If you're telling me to do with race, let's talk about it. Don't allow these people to brand you so that they can feel that you are more palatable to them. Your name is your crown of your identity. So, moving on. Tomorrow, I will be, for the first time in 3 years, going into an office. I'm a remote worker, but my boss was saying to me that other people within the team are going to be in the office and it'd be really nice to meet me face to face. And for me, typically, I would just get out of it. But I thought, you know what? I wanted to challenge myself a little bit because I know that I have anxiety about going into an office. I've been remote working for almost 3 years now, quite comfortably. But I do think that I do need to challenge myself a little bit because Monday to Friday, I could be in the house and not leave once. And also as well, I don't live in London anymore. So I do see it as an opportunity to go into London. So I'm planning to drive to my local station, park up my car, get the train into London. I don't know where I'm going, by the way. I haven't even checked the address properly. I managed to go into my wardrobe and find some work trousers. I have 3 pairs of work trousers. Can you imagine? One of them, I don't know if it's going to fit, you know, because I put one of my leg in it, the calf muscle, and then I just heard, crack! And I say, well, the thread is going to go out of this clothing. I found my backpack because my friend reminded me that I can't walk around with a laptop case. I have to actually have a backpack. She goes, people will just snatch that laptop out of your hand. I was like, girl, what's been going on since I've been away? So I'm not planning to stay the whole day. I'll probably leave around 3 or something. But yeah, I'm going to go into London, into an office. I'm going to let you guys know how that is. And I think that this whole, you know, work, like this obsession people have with meeting you and seeing you. Me, I don't understand it, especially because I worked on a project for almost 2 years where I never met any of my team members. That being said, I actually had a reunion with those people. We had a reunion last week and it was amazing because these are people that, you know, day in, day out, we had calls and we had daily meetings, all remote. The whole project was remote. And, you know, there's people that had tall energy that were short, people that were short and are very tall. You know, me, I have tall energy and I'm short, you know, I'm 5'4". But it was really nice to meet everybody from my old contract. But yeah, back to regular programming. So yeah, I'll be going into an office. I'm going to let you guys know as much as possible. I might even document it. I might even vlog it. But obviously vlog my journey in, but not where it is or anything. And I'm going to see if they've, the Tea and Biscuit Brigade, if they've reunited, because every workplace has them. And if anybody asks me if I want a biscuit, I'm going to scream. I'm going to take my AirPods with me. I was going to take my Bose headphones, but I guess that's quite obnoxious because they're huge. So I'm going to take my AirPods. I've got my laptop. I've got my ID as well. And if this is just the one time out of the entire contract that I go in, so be it. And I think my boss is really excited to meet me. don't know, maybe I just have that effect on people. So yeah, and she's been trying to get my phone number, you know, and I avoid giving it to her. I'm not there yet. This whole personable thing, it's just not me. I love working remote. I love my office setup. I love kind of keeping the boundary. I see, you know, remote working as a boundary setting is what's really, for me, great. But I do recognise where it does slightly play on my mental health. And, you know, for me, if it's once in the entire contract that I have to go in or feel I should go in, then, you know, it's a fair compromise. I don't know how I'm going to cope without having an afternoon nap, but I will be leaving at 3, and 3 typically is my afternoon nap time. Anyway, I'm getting to the countdown of my wedding blessing, which, oh my God, I can't wait to do the episode, Mortgage or Marriage. I can't wait. And I told you guys that there is a series called Mortgage or Marriage, or Mortgage versus Marriage on Netflix. And I need you all to watch it, because when we get on here and we have that conversation in an episode, I'll be drawing on a few episodes that are live on Netflix. And also as well, I'm going to be talking about, you know, family entitlement. I've had family members feel entitled to certain things. They seem to think that I should book their hotel and pay for it, and I had to tell them no. I've used the word no a lot during this process, and it's been very empowering, especially when, you know, there's episodes like The First Daughter and, you know, understanding the toxicity that exists in our culture, but equally understanding that I'm not 12 anymore, you know. And I think for a lot of my family members, they still see me as that 12-year-old Toya, that 15-year-old Toya. And I'm not here to remind them of my age. What I am here to do is set some clear boundaries. And if you're not willing to respect it, then I can walk away. And it's unfortunate that it gets to that point, but I'm not allowing myself to be culturally oppressed. And it feels good to be liberated from that and be intentional about seeking to break the generational shackles of what culture has endemically done to my upbringing, my existence. And whilst culture is so beautiful if it's taken in its rawest sense, I feel that accompanied with religion, a lot of parents, aunties, uncles, family members have really weaponized culture as a form of control. So weddings, wedding blessings, trad weddings is equally an opportunity for family members. They see it as an opportunity to wield that cultural iron, and I'm not having it. So I have told a few family members they don't have to come. You don't have to come. I don't need you here. No one has asked you for money. No one has begged you for money. Everything has been fully funded by myself and Kay. So you are a guest. And this is what family members don't realise. They're a guest. You are a guest. You are a guest number. You will have a seat. You don't get to invite anybody. I've had to uninvite family members. I have. And I have no regrets at all. Because I know that I'm going to have the day that Kay and I have paid for. And there's so many weddings I've been to, so many people I've spoken to who are so miserable, having spent thousands of pounds on a wedding just to be miserable because you have put the happiness of other people above yours. My question is, when will you be happy? When will you be given permission to be happy? If that's how we're going to work, where you make, you know, your upset is to make other people happy. When are they going to permit you to be happy? When? Blood doesn't make you entitled. It doesn't give rise to entitlement at all. Everybody should know their station, know their position. And people need to evolve, because children grow into adults. They don't stay children. Hello? Anyway, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you're new to the Toya Talks podcast family, then make sure you acquaint yourself with some of the previous episodes. If you look in the show notes, I give an in-depth summary of the content of the podcast as much as possible. If you are, again, new to the platform and you want to know a bit more about Toya Talks and the podcast and things like that, then you can go ahead and go to our website, toyatalks.com. For those of you who are and ahhing about the masterclasses, make the decision to be intentional. Be proactive in the development of your career and go ahead and have a look at the masterclasses. We have trailers for every masterclass as well. If you're not sure which one you want to buy, go ahead and have a look on the toyatalks.com website. If you want to follow me on social media, my personal Instagram page is Toya_Washington. The Toya Talks podcast Instagram page is Toya_talks. Of course, you know I am on TikTok, Toya_Washington. I am also on YouTube. I will be shortly uploading a new vlog, At Home with Toya. They're literally 20 to 30 minute vlogs about what's going on in my life. So in terms of wedding planning or trad wedding planning. And it's a trad wedding with a twist, right? Because my husband is Kenyan. And I say husband because we're already married. So for me, this is paying respect to my dad who's passed away. And, you know, offering prayers to the ancestors and having fun. You know, when Kay and I got married, we were still in restrictions of only allowed to have 12 people at our registry wedding. So this is an opportunity to also celebrate our union. So as much as possible, I will be documenting it on my YouTube channel, At Home with Toya. The link will be in the show notes that accompany this podcast episode. Follow me on Snapchat, which is the original birthplace of Toya Talks, Toya_Washington. And I am, of course, on Twitter, Toya_W, with the hashtag Toya Talks or the hashtag Toya Talks podcast. If you have a work-related or life-related dilemma that you think that I'll be able to address, your anonymity will be protected. Please email hello@toyatalks.com. Keep it clear, straight to the point, and be clear about the outcome that you are seeking, because it would guide me in how to address your dilemma. And in the subject box, please write that it's a dilemma. It will help us to filter the dilemmas in relation to dilemmas for the podcast or personal inquiries relating to the Toya Talks platform. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate all of you. Make sure you share this episode or share previous episodes or share all the episodes with anyone that you feel that will benefit from the Toya Talks podcast and platform. As I have always said and will continue to say, the Toya Talks podcast and platform is 2 Black women, for Black women, about Black women, teaching, guiding and educating Black women as we navigate the world of work and light up the path of our success. My name is Toya Washington and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.